Alrighty, what is going on, everyone? ELT here. Welcome back to the network, and today I am talking Spider-Man No Way Home. Today is the day, December 17, 2021. Today is considered the official release date of the movie in many movie theaters worldwide. Some of them got to see it a few days earlier. I myself saw the movie yesterday. I was able to get tickets to the pre-screening early access showing, whatever it's called. I was able to see the movie yesterday. At the time of this recording, it's been about 24 hours since the movie started in my movie theater. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to review the movie. It's going to be two sections of this video. It's going to be a spoiler-free section and a spoiler-filled section because there's a lot to talk about in this movie, and there's so much that I can't say without spoiling the movie. So there's going to be two sections in this movie, a really quick spoiler-free section and then a spoiler-filled section. I'll put timestamps down below in the comments section. That way you can watch my spoiler-free review of this movie and then come back to this video after you've seen the movie and watch the remaining parts of this movie where I talk spoilers. So without any further delay, let's talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. I'll give you my thoughts, my initial reactions, spoiler free. I'm just going to be listing off a whole bunch of my thoughts. I'm not going to do an entire breakdown of the movie from start to finish. I'm not reading off of any kind of script. I'm just giving you just my pure, almost out of the theater reaction to this movie. And I gotta say, right off the bat, this is hands down the best Spider-Man MCU movie we have to date. It is by far Tom Holland's best performance as Peter Parker slash Spider-Man to date, with I guess in second place being his performance in Civil War, and then third place being Homecoming. But he truly feels like the Peter Parker and Spider-Man we all know and love in this movie, especially at the end, which is spoilers. I'm not going to talk about that yet, but spoiler free, this movie is absolutely incredible. The tone is good at times. However, there are some rapid changes in tone, and the MCU is kind of infamous for this, and unfortunately this movie does suffer from that. If I'm going to be nitpicky over here, there are times where this movie starts off and it's kind of dark, and then all of a sudden you're right back to lighthearted humor, and then something happens and it's a real dark and emotional moment, and then less than a minute later, here we are right back to humor and making jokes. That's something that the MCU is unfortunately infamous for, and it does show in this movie. However, that is completely, totally forgivable with just how much awesomeness is in this movie. The villains, seeing them interact, again, no spoilers, I'm just going based on what we saw in the trailers. Seeing the way that these villains are interacting with each other in the movie is completely mind-blowing. It's something that I wanted to see for many years, and here we are, so many years later, we finally get to see these classic villains interacting with each other on the big screen. It's really well done. There are actually some references and memes that are brought up into this movie, and surprisingly, it doesn't feel cheesy, it doesn't feel tacked on, doesn't feel added on, it doesn't feel out of place. They actually referenced a lot of memes in this movie, and I'm gonna have to rewatch it again, but there's at least, I would say, at least 5 or 6 references that they made to the Spider-Man memes, and it's absolutely incredible that they did it, and they did it so well. It's done without feeling cheesy, and that's really rare when you see that. And it doesn't. This movie also doesn't really suffer the same kind of feeling that Star Wars did with what was that called? Rise of Skywalker was the last one over there. It doesn't feel that way where it's like, oh well, all of a sudden here's Palpatine, and it's not really explained at all. It's like somehow Palpatine just magically appeared out of nowhere. He's alive again. He's back. No, this movie actually does do a pretty decent job in explaining why some of these villains are back, especially since we know from previous movies, spoiler alert, I guess for all the previous Spider-Man movies, we do know that Doc Ock is dead, Green Goblin is dead, Electro blows up at the end of TASM 2, We know that Sandman and the Lizard are pretty much no more. Lizard gets all of the Lizard DNA out of his system in TASM 1. Sandman is forgiven in Spider-Man 3 and fades away into dust. But it's really well explained here, probably to the best of their abilities, why these villains are actually back. And it's just an incredible emotional ride, this movie. There is just so much to digest in this movie, and like I said, it's been 24 hours since I've seen this movie, and I still haven't fully digested everything that I was able to witness on screen. But without getting into any major spoilers, this is pretty much all I could say, is that I really enjoyed the movie. It is easily the best MCU Spider-Man movie that we've had yet. It completely blows Far From Home out of the water. I mean, Far From Home looks like absolute garbage compared to No Way Home, and I actually did end up liking Far From Home. I liked it a lot when I first saw it, but after a few rewatches, I was like, this movie isn't that great, but I still kind of like Far From Home. This movie completely destroys Far From Home, and it's actually way better than what Homecoming was, which was my favorite MCU Spider-Man movie before seeing this one. Tom Holland does an excellent job in his performance. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, he does a great job being back. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, Jamie Foxx's Electro. It was incredible seeing them all back. They all never missed a beat. I would actually say that Jamie Foxx is actually better in this movie than he was in TASM 2. Everybody does a really solid performance. There's so much going on in this movie. It's really fast-paced. It at times actually kind of feels like an episode of the 90s Spider-Man animated series, where it's just fast-paced action, plot and action. Like, here's some plot, here's some action, here's some plot, here's some action, here's some plot, here's some action. It feels like I'm watching a Saturday morning cartoon at times, and I'm completely fine with that. I absolutely loved it. Like I said, it was an emotional thrill ride. Everybody does an amazing job. Tom Holland does an incredible job as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, especially in the emotional moments of this movie. He does an incredible job. And the ending of this movie, I'll just say without spoilers, the ending of this movie is absolutely beautifully done, and it makes me so much more optimistic for the future of Spider-Man in the MCU and Tom Holland's future as the character for however many more movies he's doing it. They already announced a new trilogy. Whether or not that entire trilogy is going to have Tom Holland as Spider-Man in it is still up in the air, but either way, I'm very pleasantly pleased with this movie. And if I was to rank it right now, without having to rewatch it, because my thoughts change when you rewatch movies, like they did with Far From Home, but as of right now, if I was to rank No Way Home, I would definitely say it's better than the TASM series, so I'm going to rank it above The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. It's better than Far From Home. It's better than Homecoming, so I would rank it above those movies as well. And I guess I would also probably rank it above Spider-Man 3. As of right now, I would say that this movie is actually better than Spider-Man 3. So, when we're talking about top-tier Spider-Man movies, it would have to be number 1, Spider-Man 2, number 2, Spider-Man, number 3, I would have to maybe give to No Way Home, and number 4, I would give Into the Spider-Verse right now. So right now, I actually have this above Into the Spider-Verse. I may change my opinion on that and having to rewatch this movie, but as of right now, I think I'm going to rank it above Into the Spider-Verse. So this is top 3 Spider-Man movies. To give it a number rating, I want to say 10 out of 10, but I just know it's not really 10 out of 10. There are a couple of nitpicks that I have over there, so I'm going to try to take the nostalgic glasses off a little bit. I'm going to try to bring my Spider-Man fanboy stuff down a little bit, and I'm going to say 9 out of 10 for right now. I will give this movie a solid 9 out of 10. Having to rewatch this movie, it may drop to an 8, 8.5, but this is still an incredible Spider-Man movie. I highly recommend it if you're a Spider-Man fan. If you're skeptical on MCU Spidey, I would say definitely give this movie a chance if you're not a fan of MCU Spidey. The first half of this movie feels a lot like the previous MCU Spider-Man movies, but trust me, once you get past to the second and third act, The movie dramatically changes, and by the end of the movie, I believe that you'll have a Spider-Man that we could all agree is really good. It's very similar to the Spider-Man that we all know and love from previous iterations, similar to the comics, similar to the Spectacular Spider-Man series, similar to Spider-Man PS4, PS5. I mean, the ending scene in this movie feels like it was something out of Insomniac's Spider-Man PS4, PS5. It felt like I was watching the video game cutscene. That's how actually good I think it was. So, without getting into any spoilers, Spider-Man No Way Home, 2 thumbs up for me, 9 out of 10. Highly, highly recommend the movie. Okay, now let's talk some spoilers for this movie because there is a lot to talk about, and similar to what I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not going to be breaking down this movie from start to finish, but I'm just going to talk about some major spoilers. This is your final spoiler warning. If you don't want to be spoiled, I recommend not being spoiled. Stay off of social media. Why are you on YouTube? I don't know why. Don't read the comment section of any videos. Don't look at any YouTube thumbnails. Don't go on Facebook. Don't go on Twitter. Don't go anywhere. Just go watch this movie and then come back to the spoiler section. Because we're going to talk spoilers in 3, 2, 1. The GOATs are back. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in this movie. Probably one of the worst kept secrets, but they are in this movie, and it's just mind-blowing actually seeing them back. I mean, the last time we saw Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man was way back in 2007 with Spider-Man 3, so we're talking 14 years if my math is correct right now. 14 years since we've seen him on the big screen as Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and 7 years since we've seen Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 2014. Absolutely great seeing them back. I mean, if I was to be again, this is talking spoilers and nitpicks over here. If I'm going to be nitpicky over here, their entrances, if I could talk today, I'm so excited I can barely talk. Their entrances into this movie aren't as epic as I would have liked. You know, they just come out of a portal that Ned makes over there after he gets Doctor Strange's little magic ring or whatever that was over there, brass knuckles, whatever. He creates this little portal. Out comes Andrew Garfield. He's the first one to be revealed over there. Great reveal. He hasn't missed a beat, that guy. I gotta give huge props to Andrew Garfield. He has not missed a beat since the last time we saw him. He looks like he just came straight out of the ending of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. He hasn't aged a day. He's still pretty much on point with his acting as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He feels exactly the same. I like the little interaction that he has with MJ and Ned over there, sticking to the wall. MJ throwing the bread at him, and he's just like, why are you doing that? And it's such a great interaction. It was great seeing him back on there. And like I said, he hasn't really missed a beat. And then we got the even bigger GOAT, Tobey Maguire. His entrance, like I said, it's not as epic as I was hoping. It was just, he was just like kind of there. He comes out of a portal similar to Andrew Garfield. Then opens up another portal to try to find Peter Parker. And out comes Tobey Maguire. He's not even wearing his suit. He's just wearing regular street clothes. But that didn't change the fact that I probably had the biggest, most stupidest look on my face. I was probably smiling from ear to ear. I had tears in my eyes. It was completely incredible seeing him back over there after 14 years. My personal favorite live-action Spider-Man. And just the interactions that he had with Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland were absolutely phenomenal. Especially with Andrew Garfield. Like, between him and Tobey, their interactions, it's like, I just wanted more of that. They did have a decent amount of screen time, a lot more than I was thinking, so their screen time is actually pretty good, but I still just wanted much more of them. I kind of want like a buddy cop movie with them. That's how good that they work together. Their chemistry together was actually pretty well done. Seeing Tobey back in the classic Raimi suit was completely phenomenal. All the interactions that they had with there, talking about the web shooters and how Tobey has the organic webs, talking about his web block that he has in Spider-Man 2. Like I said, all the references and all the memes that were in this movie that I said in the spoiler-free section of this video. You have Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn say, I'm something of a scientist myself, and it didn't feel tacked on, it didn't feel cheesy. So he, like, right there, he's just copying the exact same line that he said in the first Spider-Man movie. I'm something of a scientist myself. You have totally references back, which I did not see that coming at all. When he started doing those stretching, I was like, oh, it's back. And then he says, oh, yeah, it's my back. I was like, oh, my God. They are actually referencing the My Back memes from Spider-Man 2. And they actually have Andrew Garfield actually solve his problem. He actually cracks his back for him. It's like, what is this? What am I watching right now? This is like something out of a fever dream. It's absolutely incredible what I'm seeing right now on screen. It's just, oh god, this movie is just so phenomenal. It's everything I wanted and more. It exceeded my expectations, and I know I'm going all over the place here, but there's not really much I could say without sounding like a complete idiot. That's how much I loved this movie. And then, of course, there's the interactions with the other villains. Seeing Doc Ock interact with Green Goblin was something that I only dreamed about when those movies came out. It was a shame that we never actually got to see them interact way back when, but now here we are, finally in 2021, and we're seeing Alfred Molina's Doc Ock interact with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and it's mind-blowing. Again, being nitpicky though, thinking about it now, it's like, well, wait a minute, how did Doc Ock actually know that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin? I mean, they know that he's dead. Obviously, that must have been out in the newspapers and everything when Norman Osborn died. But how did Doc Ock know that he was killed by his glider? How did he know that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin? Because obviously, in the future Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, Harry, who is Norman Osborn's son, doesn't even know that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin until the butler tells him. So how did Doc Ock know that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin? Again, being nitpicky here after watching the movie, I didn't really care while watching the movie. It was just after, when I was thinking about it, I was like, that's kind of weird. That kind of doesn't make any sense. But again, I really didn't care because I was just enjoying myself so much. And actually, speaking of cameos, how could I forget? Like, right at the beginning of the movie, within the first 10 minutes of the movie, we get a brief appearance from Charlie Cox. He is back as Daredevil and Matt Murdock. He doesn't show up as Daredevil, obviously. That would have been too much to add on, but he does show up as Matt Murdock. He is back. He, just like Andrew Garfield, he hasn't missed a beat. He looks like he just came straight out of the Netflix series. It was great seeing him back, and it was just one brief scene, unfortunately. He just got the one scene where he was talking to Peter, Happy, and Aunt May over there, talking about how the charges were going to be dropped and everything. It was just a brief scene over there. I would have liked to have seen more with him instead of just that one initial scene that we got. I would have liked maybe one more scene where it was actually him defending Peter Parker in court. That would have been cool to have a nice little court scene to see Matt Murdock be more of that lawyer that he really is. There were some moments like that. I think it's episode 1 of The Defenders on the Netflix where we actually see him in the courtrooms over there. Those scenes were really well done, and I was kind of hoping for something like that in this movie, but instead, we just get that one brief scene where he just briefly goes over, like, oh yeah, the charges against Peter Parker are going to be dropped because they don't have enough of this, that, and the other, and something about Happy having to deal with these problems. But either way, it is what it is. I know they couldn't really fit too much into this movie without it being like 4 hours long and overly complicated. I'm just glad that we actually got to see him back, though. I loved his character. I loved his performance as Daredevil in the Netflix series, and I am highly looking forward to seeing more of him. There was just so much good to come out of this movie that it's kind of hard to hate this movie. And then, of course, there's the big emotional scene in the movie, and that is, of course, the death of Aunt May over there. Pretty much saw that coming. I mean, unfortunately, the No Way Home soundtrack actually got leaked about a week, or actually, I think it was 2 weeks now. I think about it, probably 2 weeks before this movie came out. The No Way Home soundtrack actually got leaked out, and I actually did see the titles of each of the tracks, and I believe it was actually track number 12 or 13 was actually titled May's Death. So unfortunately, I was spoiled about that going into this movie, just didn't know when or how it was going to happen. And yeah, obviously it happens right in the middle of the movie, right around Act 2. That's how Act 2 ends. Green Goblin, being Green Goblin, he actually kills her, which is very, very impactful over there. So this is not really the first time we saw a Green Goblin kill someone. We saw a Green Goblin in TASM 2. He's responsible for Gwen's death over there. Now we got Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin responsible for the death of Aunt May. And I guess the board directors, you could say, in the first Spider-Man movie, but they weren't really important characters. Unfortunately, Aunt May does die in this movie. It's a pretty emotional scene over there. Like I said, Tom Holland, his acting was completely on point in this movie. He does really good with the emotional scenes over there. Really had us all tearing up in the movie theaters. Was this Aunt May death as good as the death that she has in Spider-Man PS4, PS5? No, but it still was pretty emotional over there when he actually saw the blood coming out of her and trying to convince her that it was all going to be alright over there. And then it's actually Aunt May that actually delivers the line, "With great power, there must also come great responsibility." Some people may love that, some people may hate that. I'm kind of indifferent on that because it may have still have come out of Uncle Ben's mouth in this, let's call it Tom Holland universe. Because the way that she says it, and the way that Tom looks at her while she's saying it, Tom almost has like that look on his face like, oh yeah, I heard that before. So maybe she actually got it from Uncle Ben. And then of course later on they also have the scene with Toby and Tom over there, both saying that with great power comes great responsibility over there. So I'm really glad that that line actually got added. It's such an important line for Spider-Man movies and Spider-Man stories. There is no Spider-Man without with great power. There must also come great responsibility. That was literally the ending of Spider-Man's first appearance in Amazing Fantasy 15 over there. That's like one of the final panels. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. And the fact that a lot of movies like to avoid that line is very frustrating, so I was very pleasantly pleased that they actually added with great power, there must also come great responsibility into this movie. And for the love of God, they actually said the man's name. They actually mentioned Uncle Ben by name. Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, mentions Uncle Ben. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning Uncle Ben's existence. I'm not saying you have to show his death scene 100 times, but the motivating factor for Spider-Man is Uncle Ben in a lot of cases, and the fact that it was been brushed over the past couple of movies, and it was almost like a joke in Far From Home, is very frustrating. Thankfully, they did redeem themselves here by mentioning Uncle Ben and the "with great power comes great responsibility" line, so that was very pleasantly surprised and very pleasing to actually hear that in this movie. And then I guess really the last big major spoiler thing that I would like to talk about that I really enjoyed was actually the final act, the big battle between the Sinister Five, actually it was actually more like a Sinister Four, and all three Spider-Man. So you actually had Doc Ock was actually cured in Act 2 by actually Peter Parker and Norman Osborn actually created a new chip to put on the back of his neck to cure him. That was pretty cool to see him actually go back to his normal Otto Octavius form over there. They didn't do Doc Ock dirty. They didn't completely just drag in the mud Spider-Man 2 and the whole entire arc that he went through there, where he actually became a hero in the end. They actually picked up right where he had, I think he says that he has Peter Parker, Toby's Peter Parker, when he actually grabs him in Spider-Man 2 over there, right before he gets electrocuted. And I believe that that's when he actually gets transported into Tom's universe. I believe that's what he actually says over there. We don't see it, but he does mention that over there, that he had Spider-Man in his grasp, and then he was just ended up there. So that was probably the moment where he got transported into this universe, and that's why he was asking Tom where his machine was, the power of the sun in the palm of his hand. But I'm just really glad that they didn't crap all over Doc Ock's story arc in Spider-Man 2, and he actually had a lot of purpose and a lot of meaning in this story. He actually helps them out in the final battle. He actually helps cure Electro. Like I said, they fixed a new chip to actually help him out over there. They fixed Sandman, they fixed Lizard. There's just so much to digest in this movie, and I know I'm rambling on over here, but there was just so much to see. The final act seeing all three Spider-Man interact with each other was absolutely amazing. Seeing them swinging with each other and that landing that they did was absolutely great. Of course, the scene where we saw in the trailer Tom jumping with Sandman, Electro, and Lizard over there, we knew that they had to digitally edit out Toby and Tom, and lo and behold, they actually did. In that scene in the actual movie, all three of them are there. And then, as also many of us predicted, the scene that we got from the trailer where MJ is actually falling very similar to Gwen, it is actually not Tom Holland's Spider-Man that actually saves her. He tries to save her, Goblin swoops in and takes him away, and that's when Andrew gets the redemption that he deserves, redemption at the end of Spider-Man 2. Instead of killing Gwen, he actually saves MJ this time, and Andrew Garfield, he does an incredible job in his performance in this movie. Like I said, he hasn't skipped a beat. He catches MJ, he lands, he has tears in his eyes, he's thinking back of Gwen. That was an incredible emotional moment, and that moment really didn't have to be in this movie, but I'm just so glad that they actually went that way, and they didn't just try to completely ignore like TASM 2 or any other of the previous Spider-Man movies. Like, oh yeah, the other Spider-Man, they're just here now. They're here to help. No, they actually addressed the other Spider-Man movies. I mean, at one point, Spider-Man actually, Tobey Spider-Man actually talks about Harry for a brief moment over there when he's talking to Ned about, oh yeah, my best friend, he died in my arms before he tried to kill me. So they're actually referencing all these other movies over there. It's not brushed over. It's not forced. They just did a really incredible job, and I can't wait to watch this movie again. I'm going to see if maybe I can get some more tickets to go see this movie again, and I really hope that they release this movie digitally and Blu-ray really soon. Usually they release in a couple months, so I'm probably thinking like around February is when the Blu-ray is probably going to come out, if not March, which seems like a long way away, but I really can't wait to own this movie on Blu-ray and 4K and just have it playing on loop on my TV in the background, similar to how I did when Into the Spider-Verse came out on Blu-ray. I actually played it on loop on my TV for a couple days because I just loved that movie so much. And I'm going to do something very similar with this movie because it's an incredible movie with incredible performances by Tom Holland. He really truly felt like Spider-Man. At the end of this movie, he actually makes a brand new classic suit, which we really couldn't see too well because it was kind of dark. I really can't wait to watch the 4K version of that so I can take a much better look at the new suit, and hopefully they release actually some new images of that new suit that he creates, because it looked really, really good. It looked like a perfect combination of the Homecoming Stark suit along with Toby and Andrew's suit. It looked phenomenal, and I just want to see more of it. But just to wrap it up, I know I've been rambling all over the place, and I thank you for watching this video and listening to me ramble on. I really love this movie so much. It not only met my expectations, it actually exceeded my expectations. A lot of things I really liked about this movie, only just a few small nitpicks here and there, a couple of things that don't make sense. Maybe I'll make another video explaining my nitpicks on it, maybe I won't, but just go watch this movie. It's just really good, and that's it. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there on this movie. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and turn on notifications so we don't miss on any new videos. And until next time, I am ELT, signing out.